welcome to Contrast Reviews, the show where I do the nitpicking for you. These reviews aren't going to be a comprehensive coverage on any film. I do that to other reviewers. I find those reviews very helpful, but that's not what I want to talk about. This is more for things that I notice, things that stand out or resonate to me. So with that in mind, I want to talk about Inside Out. If Pixar has a theme to their films, it's upsetting the status quo. They did it in Toy Story. They did it in Cars, Monsters Incorporated. They've done it in pretty much all their films. And basically just having the main character deal with a drastic change in their circumstances. Inside Out is yet another in that vein. The main character for the movie is Riley. She's a young girl who moves from Minnesota to San Francisco, and the change isn't easy for her. The movie's told primarily through the viewpoint of joy, one of Riley's emotions, along with sadness, anger, disgust, and fear. Joy has always been the de facto leader of the team, of the emotions, in large part because she was the first to manifest when Riley was born, and also because Riley's parents often refer to her as their happy little girl. And because of that, Joy doesn't really know how to let anyone else handle things, in particular sadness. What really got my attention was that this is how a child might understand the concept of joy, of happiness. Joy herself, and by association Riley, Joy literally doesn't know how to let any other emotion be in charge. She lets the others step in very briefly, only when there's a specific thing that they need to do. Joy is always the one in the driver's seat. Riley herself is concerned to disappoint her parents, and Joy wants to protect Riley. All the emotions do. It's actually so severe that at one point, when Riley's having nightmares, Joy literally unplugs the nightmares and turns on an old happy memory in their place. It was actually a little hard to watch the early parts of the film. Joy is pretty cruel to sadness. She doesn't know how to handle sadness's presence in Riley's mind. So she actively pushes her into a corner to keep her out of the way, finding busy work for her to do, making excuses for why sadness can't be near the control panel, can't be near the memories. It's not until the climax of the film that Joy understands how essential sadness is as a companion to Riley. It happens when Joy is viewing an old memory of a happy moment with Riley's parents and her old hockey team, where they came to cheer her up after they lost a game and she was really upset. And Joy realizes that this happy memory came about because Riley was sad, because people came to help her feel better. And again, the film works very strongly on the concept of how someone who's very young might understand how emotions play off each other. They reflect this in one of the minor characters, Bing Bong, Riley's imaginary friend from when she was a toddler. Bing Bong, voiced by the ever entertaining Richard Kind. He's been bouncing around Riley's subconscious ever since she outgrew him. And when Joy and Sadness are stranded there outside of their main headquarters, he doesn't hesitate to help them try to find their way back. He knows how important they are. So at one point, he's trying to help them get back, and this toy wagon that Riley used to imagine was a rocket ship, so of course, in her mind, it is a rocket ship, gets accidentally thrown into the memory dump, which is a big gaping pit where things get dumped to be literally forgotten forever. They fade away into nothing. So when that happens, Bing Bong's devastated. He just kind of sits there on the edge of the chasm and looks down where he can see this little wagon, and he can't get past it. Joy tries to do the same thing she always said to Sadness. She just says, "Oh, just be happy. Turn that frown upside down. Find the silver lining." And of course, it doesn't work. It didn't work on Sadness earlier in the film, and it doesn't work here. Nothing helps. Nothing until Sadness sits down with him, and she doesn't tell him to feel better. She doesn't try to make him think of something else and change the subject. She just agrees that, yeah, that's sad. That was something that's important to you, and now it's gone. And that's sad, and it's okay to feel sad about that. She emphasizes with him, and with that, he's able to process what happened and compose himself and get back to helping Joy and Sadness find their way back to headquarters. I want to take a second to talk about the emotions themselves. For me personally, I don't feel that their names are the total sum of who and what they are. Joy is the leader of Riley's team, but for her parents, Sadness sits in the pilot seat for her mom and Anger for her dad. But her mom's not a depressed person. Her father's not a aggressive person. If anything, I feel that, her mom is more empathetic, sympathetic, and her dad is just simply passionate. You can see this in the family's first dinner at their new home. At this point in the film, Joy and Sadness have been pulled out of HQ. They're trying to find their way back. Anger, disgust, and fear are trying to keep things together. They're trying to keep Riley happy. They can't. They literally can't. They actually discuss this amongst themselves. How are we going to make Riley feel joy? So because of that, it's pretty clear to Riley's parents, her mom in particular, that something's wrong. So her mom tries to be subtle about it and try to get Riley to tell them what's wrong, whereas her father inadvertently puts his foot in it. His anger provokes Riley's anger, and he ends up sending her to her room. But despite that argument, the very next scene, he goes upstairs to tuck her in. He tries to make her laugh. He's disappointed when she doesn't, but she can't because Joy's not there. He just wants to make sure that, that his daughter knows that he's not mad at her, that he still cares about her. So he says goodnight and he apologizes. And that's what I loved most about the movie. Everyone was supportive of Riley. I'm absolutely a sucker for a film where they don't shoehorn in force a villain in just to force conflict. And there were several opportunities to do that here. They could have made Riley's parents antagonistic. You see that very often in children's films. Parents are either antagonistic, not villains necessarily, but antagonistic, or they're completely useless and ineffectual. They're imbeciles. That's not the case here. Riley's parents don't do that. Bing Bong could have been a villain. He could have been resentful that he was left behind as Riley grew up. But that's not the case. As soon as he realizes what happened to Joy and Sadness, he does everything he can to help them get back because he's Riley's friend. He cares about her. Everyone in Riley's mind, especially obviously, everyone wants what's best for her. The climax of the film is when Riley tries to run away back to Minnesota and changes her mind at the last minute, comes back to her new home, and her parents, instead of being angry or antagonistic or anything like that, they're just relieved that she's okay. Joy steps aside and insists that Sadness take the controls because she's learned that at this point, that's what's needed. Sometimes you need to be sad. It's a heartbreaking but bittersweet moment where Riley admits that she's sad and she apologizes to her parents, but she says she doesn't know how to be happy. She misses her home, she misses her friends, she doesn't know how to be happy. You can see that she's angry with herself for feeling that way. She's disgusted that she can't be the happy girl. She's afraid of everything that's been happening. And again, instead of having her parents be mad at her, you can see both of them. They're upset that they didn't realize it sooner, that they had inadvertently made her think that she could only be happy, because that's what, again, has always been the case. Joy has been the only one at the control panel. So both her parents tell her that it's okay. She doesn't have to be happy. They're not happy. They're upset about everything that's been happening with the move, the moving van not arriving on time. They're stressed. there, and they apologize to her for not realizing how upset she was. No point in the film is anyone told not to feel however they feel like feeling. The only character who ever does say anything like that is Joy, and again, that's because the main plot of the film is her realizing that that's not a healthy outlook, and by association, Riley realizing, learning, and growing up and learning that it's okay. Sometimes it's okay to be depressed, and that's the message of the film. This is a film that wants to make sure that the audience knows that their emotions are valid, that you can be angry, you can be afraid, you can be sad or disgusted, or anything in between. No emotion is ever portrayed as negative. All said and done, I cannot recommend this movie highly enough. It approached very adult concepts like depression with a mature style, and it keeps everything coached in a language that makes it very accessible to the target audience, to children. It does move at a very brisk pace, with more jokes and sight gags and puns than anything else, but that's to be expected with a children's film. I would have loved more time spent on the heavier topics, but at the same time, the puns had me laughing, and not only was I entertained by the jokes, but it also made the stronger moments that much more poignant. Anyway, that's all I've got. Thanks for watching, and that's all, folks.